since we have a new member, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. So, where do you, yeah, we'll start with
Okay.
Shannon.
I'm Shannon Groh, I'm the URA director.
Tim Switzer, member at large.
Sheila Bond, member at large.
Butch Alford, and I think I'm designated from Valley Vision. Well, I don't think I am, I know I am.
Joe Anderson as a Port of Lewiston Commissioner.
Don Beck, County Commissioner.
And Joe, if you want to introduce yourself.
And I'm Joe Gish, and I'm a member at large.
Awesome. And
Welcome
then
aboard.
the audience.
Okay, I'm Joe Kaufman. I'm the engineer at the City of Lewiston, kind of capital projects, wastewater, stormwater, those things.
Luke Antonich, City of Lewiston, City Engineer.
Ryan Rader with Mountain Waterworks.
All right, awesome, thank you guys. All right.
So welcome.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but had to fly today.
That happens.
All right, and then it sounds like Jim Kleberg will be joining us at some point.
Yes.
Maybe not this meeting, but a future meeting, so.
Correct. Yep.
No Rick Towsley today.
Rick has resigned, and
Yes.
Jim Kleberg has been appointed to the URA, but it was just last night, so I'm not sure he was able to make arrangements to
Oh,
come to
okay.
today's meeting.
I saw it in the agenda.
I missed that.
All right,
City council agenda.
Oh,
all right, so moving on, we'll do citizen comments, and since we don't really have anybody from the public here, I guess we can.
Ryan, do you have anything to say? No, okay.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, so item number 3, corrections or additions to the agenda. It sounds like from talking to Shannon, we have a couple invoices that are in your packet to add to the agenda. They're in the
Yes.
back.
Right, so you in your amended packet, you have the stapled piece, and then later on you have the financial summary. And then you have these invoices that we did receive. One is from Douglas Law, invoice number 492. This is for July expenses for $195. We have the Lewiston Tribune invoice 174904. This is for the publication of the 2024 budget in the amount of $220,000. And then the Lewiston Tribune invoice 174907, publication of the 2023 amended budget for $172. And I would recommend placing them under active item B, 3, 4, and 5.
You mean 4, 5, and 6?
Yes.
4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6.
do you need a motion on that?
Yes.
I would move we amend the agenda to include those invoices.
I'll second that.
All right, with a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll add those on to the agenda. And moving on to the agenda, we're going to open it up to public hearing of the FY23 budget of amendments. I don't think we have any public here, so.
And I have received no written testimony on the budget.
All right. So since we have no testimony, we'll go ahead and close the open hearing on the FY23 budget amendments and move on to FY24 budget to receive testimony on that. With no,
And I have received nothing.
okay, we have received nothing on that, and there's no public here, so we'll go ahead and close testimony on the FY24 budget and move to the active agenda. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes of July 20th, 2023.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I move we accept it.
Okay,
Or I would say that
all right,
instead of approval, I would say that we accept them.
all right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of July 20th, 2023. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Okay, so the next item on the active agenda is approval of invoices. The first invoice is Douglas Law, invoice number 373 for $135. That was sent to you earlier.
That's in the original packet.
Yeah, in the original packet. Looks like Stan charges for June.
Say that again.
Is that, no, I was a little confused when I read over those. Is that 135 that amounted to the 605 or the
Just the
June
one-
6th,
no,
June 12th?
Just the one at the top, 135.
Yep, the 135,
Yeah.
which is services for June 5th, 12th, and 20th. Yep,
All right.
totally 135.
Correct. As a matter of course, we pay invoices, not statements, and so that's why it's just the 135 there.
Now, down the bottom is 825, that's still what we owe her.
No, it's just her system hasn't caught up. Yeah.
I would move to pay the Douglas Law invoice for $135.
Second.
All right, so a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, the next item for invoice approval is invoice City of Lewiston each Orchard Sewer Phase 3 totaling $53,588.50.
So this is what I included in your packet today for this invoice, because we have some new folks, is the letter requesting the reimbursement to the city in the total amount of $53,000. You can see that that's 3 different invoices for Mountain Water Works. I also included the December 12th meeting minutes to show that that's what the city has, the URA has agreed to reimburse the city for. And then I also included the scope of work from Phase 3 that shows what these are all about.
And these were engineering or
This is design work, yes.
design, yes.
Yep. But it's one lump sum as a request to the city.
I would move we pay the invoice to Mountain Water Works for
the city of Lewiston.
City of Lewiston, $53,588 for design work on East Orchards.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Question.
Okay, discussion.
So you got 34,357. That doesn't match up with 53,000.
There's one more, $15,000. So there's 3 of them.
So $19,000.
Yeah. 14,
So
20,
that shows
19.
down. I was trying to look through these and make heads or tails of it, so
Okay. Yeah, it's
I
3
guess I can
different
go
ones.
along with that.
Okay. Well, I don't know if this helps or not, but I do go through these before they are submitted to you.
So
Aye.
I was confused like you, and I think you look up here, don't look at this number. If you look at the box that's red,
Yes.
Yeah.
those correspond
Right
to
here.
Yeah.
the city. Because I had that same problem, but I think I ended up working my way through it. So
Yeah.
those 3 boxes match the actual
Yeah, it's
overall
kinda
invoice.
Trace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because when the city pays consultants, different projects, you do one check,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's what
Our
happens.
So-
portion is just on the upper,
Somebody else is paying the $73,000.
Correct, yeah,
yeah, but ours correspond to the red boxes.
yeah.
Because I had the same question. So,
We try to
I'll
make
go
it.
along with that.
all right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the City of Lewiston administrative fees, $14,750.
So this is the second half of the contract that the URA agreed to with the city of Lewiston. It was prorated for the first half, second half is this $14,750. I'm not sure why it's copied twice in there, but it's there twice for you.
Okay.
And that's yours and Dawn's administrative.
Administrative fees, April
Correct.
through September of 2023.
This is
For
for
the
the
URA.
remainder of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will move approval of payment of $14,750 to the city of Lewiston for administrative fees.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, and then we're gonna move on to the corrected agenda. So for number 4, we'll do the Tribune first. So the first invoice, I guess we do both Tribunes together.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll do both Tribunes together. First invoice is for $220 for July 30th, and the second invoice is for $172, also July 30th. And these, again, you said were for affidavit of publication for our budgets.
Correct.
Guess nobody wants to pay them.
Butch will abstain.
I move we approve the invoices to the Tribune for publication.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
And I abstain.
Yes, and Butch is abstaining, got it. So that's 4 and 5. So the last invoice to pay would be Douglas Law, new invoice from Douglas Law that was added to the packet. And this is for services for July totaling $195, invoice number 492.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, so moving on the agenda, the next item is review of financial summary for July. This is the summary of activity included in your packet that we review on a monthly basis. And I guess Shannon has something to.
Yeah, this just reflects what we've paid through the end of July. As you can see here, it shows you a total of each of the revenue allocation areas. We did receive the second, essentially within a fiscal year, you receive 2 kind of big tax payments. And that somewhat corresponds with the due date of December and June, December 20th and June 20th. And so about a month later, we get kind of 2 big dumps. And then we get some other tax payments throughout the year. But this does reflect the second tax payment from the increments captured. And then on the reverse side of that page, you have the bond summary that shows the outstanding bond balance of $1.493,479.62.
Oops, lost me just a sec. Where'd you say?
Yep, there you go at the bottom there.
Oh, okay, outstanding bonds, got it. And this is the meeting that if we wanted to pay a little more on the bonds, we need to.
That's later on in this
Later on.
agenda, yep, yep,
So,
So this is just for information only.
correct.
Madam Chairman, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Shannon, as you look down through, like on the East Main, on the front
Yes.
of that, that balance of 9/30/2022, that's the beginning there. And then, of course, these are all expenditures here. So is that the actual amount that we have, 564?
Yes,
564,609,
yes.
okay, I'm reading that right. All right.
So any balance as of July 31st.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see anything that's a surprise.
Yeah, it looks pretty standard.
And does that have what our annual payment on the bond was gonna be?
No,
Total.
you'll make the payment in August, so it doesn't reflect the payment yet.
But does it show it as a liability or a due?
No. Not on this. This is, this is
Basically, just a
revenues
summary of-
coming in,
summary of the
expenses going out.
activity.
It's real
Yeah.
time, yeah, cash basis. But it will.
All right, any other questions about the financial summary? Any questions? on then to approve amended FY '23 budget action item. I'll turn this over to Shannon.
Okay. So on the screen here, we have, let me scroll up, okay. So, again, this has not changed since last month, but I'm just gonna, go through it one more time. This is the amended budget. The original budget is this without any highlights. As you can see, has 400,000 across the board here, 380 and 100 for downtown. And based on the information I got from the county, I was able to amend those to reflect what the county believes that we will be receiving in tax increments, as well as updated the interest income. Projected costs, this is based on, this 200,000 is based on the final reimbursement for the city for Highway 12, 21st Street intersection. $55,000 for East Orchards, which is what you are paying today. 100,000 for Bryden, that's just the design for Bryden and maybe anything else that might come through the next 2 months. You can see the extra bond payment is reflected here, where it says normally this would just be 94. We added the 200,000 to be 294. We have a debt service of 628,519, which was updated. And so this is your more accurate FY '23 budget. Is it going to be exact? No, but it does reflect those increment values better, as well as some project costs. And so there has been no testimony received, and at this point, it's just approving the FY '23 amended budget.
Okay. And that reflects the 200,000 payment.
Correct.
Okay. That we approved last month. Any discussion?
That's the same as we have printed, right?
It should be,
Yes,
yeah.
it should be the same in your packet.
I'm squinting to
I
see
know.
the.
See if I'm trying some trickery on you.
It's hard to see that part of it. All right, so just looking for a motion to approve the amended FY 2023 budget.
Take a motion to approve FY '23.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And motion passes. All right, so the next item on the agenda is to approve the FY 2024 budget, which the amended one is into. I'll turn it over to Shannon to discuss.
Yeah. All right, so this is the FY '24 budget. And it does reflect now the new FY 2023 payment of 200,000. And also the new increment cost there. Now, this is just what we're projecting right now. We are gonna have a conversation later on East Orchard Sewer that may change this, or it may not, but we have to start somewhere. And if we do end up changing it, then we will do an amended budget like we just did for '23 at the end of the fiscal year.
Right. Project cost is 600.
Yes, that is put in there because of LOID. So we're gonna have them come next month, but again, it's putting a number in there just to start the conversation, yeah. It's very unknown right now, given where it's at, so I put somewhere in there.
And that would be a potential project cost in that, but in the fiscal year of '24.
Correct. Yeah.
Would that be like design questionable?
Design is almost done, but we do still owe the city some
Okay.
money there.
And that 600,000 will reflect that?
It could be included in that.
Okay. Well,
The
conversation starter there, but I thought we had discussed that it was probably not gonna happen, or that we were unlikely to have activity in the near future on the
You
road.
would on the road, you may not with Lloyd,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that would be interesting.
Yes,
So they're gonna come and talk about it next month.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they just couldn't come this time.
Perfect. So any other discussion? So this is basically just approving the budget for 2024, knowing that we could potentially have some adjustments made.
For sure.
I'll move that we approve the URA budget for fiscal year '24 as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those abstain. Motion passes. All right, so next on the budget, City of Lewiston East Orchard Sewer Phase 3 additional costs. Joe Kaufman's gonna present. I'll turn it over to Shannon to kind of get started. I think we're gonna be referring to this document in your packet with the big long spreadsheet. I'll have that out.
And this one too in the sequel.
No, this first item is a request from the city of Lewiston so we just made that payment for the $53,000 for the design. So what you're looking at is actually the next item, so that's for item G or whatever it is. F. Yeah, we're on item, oh my gosh,
We're on
I'm just
item
all
F.
over the place here.
Which I thought was this.
It is not.
Okay, sorry. This
So
is-
yes, so please ignore that for now. Item F is the city wanted some time to discuss some additional costs that have come up with the design of this to get to item G.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna turn it over to Joe Kaufman to discuss that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for having me. So this first item is really reimbursement for the rock boring that we did along the alignments for the sewer lines. We would have preferred to have that rolled in with the design contract when we came to, I don't remember which meeting that was, but.
December.
Okay, the December meeting, but the person that we've used in the past for that had gotten out of that business, and we had a heck of a time finding someone who would come in and just do the work for us, so, it was mentioned a little bit at that time, but basically, after we got the design going, we just had to contract for the rock pouring outside of that design contract. So this is what it cost us. We were able to combine that effort with another project, so we only had to pay half of a mobilization fee to get the drill rig in here and get that all done at the same time.
And can you briefly just talk about why the rock boring, where it fits into this,
Okay,
briefly?
yeah, really two ways. One is that in a perfect world, like the best sort of cost for putting in a sewer line is basically just to dig it in as deep as you can without having to excavate rock. So the deeper you go, the larger area you can serve with it, to reason. At some point it gets deeper. But that's also where you can end up with a lot of extra cost is, you can't dig it out, you have to hammer it out, or I guess in other places blast it out, although I've not seen that done here like in a road, to excavate out the rock. So mapping where the rock is for a sewer project is a way to make sure that you're not kind of going in blind.
So you're drilling down to see how deep you have to go to hit rock?
Yep. So where's the soft rock start? So what we would estimate to be diggable with a big machine and the rock teeth and stuff, and then refusal where we'd expect it to be pretty hard from that line down.
How far down did you go, Jim?
Well, I'm going from memory. The deepest we've gone in any of the East Orchard sewer manholes is about, I think, 18 feet. So pretty deep. And that one had, because it's at the intersection of 20th and Grell, that one had a fair bit of rock at the bottom of it. But some places we haven't had a lot, some places there's some. So to try to make sure you only design it deep where you have to in order to get through that rock to service the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Is that-
yeah,
that brief
so
enough
essentially,
explanation?
yeah, I think so. So essentially, you have to do the materials testing to find out how to best go about the design, which leads to the construction costs. And so the city's just, back in December, that piece wasn't a part of the contract, and so it wasn't considered by the URA. And so the city is saying, oh, well, would the URA consider this a cost? It certainly leads to the project. It's an allowable cost, if you will, and the city just didn't have, they can't just submit an invoice to you because it wasn't something that the URA authorized previously. But if you are wanting to participate in that cost, then we will bring an invoice back to you at the next meeting to consider.
And do we have an estimated price? Do we know, or is that something you want to discuss?
Was it just that one invoice?
It's that one invoice.
So it's about $18,000.
Okay. So I guess we're voting today whether we want to consider participating and paying $18,000.
Correct.
For the rock pouring.
And I will remind the URA that it's owes the city $552,000 as a part of this project and is paying 100% instead of 50-50 where you have been. We're kind of making that back to zero, if you will. And so the URA does still have some costs that it owes to the city of Lewiston for this project.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is that 18,000 just for the part that you've sent us last time about the work? Or is that about all of it?
No, that is just for the roads that we're designing. The
20th.
It includes the preliminary design piece in Grell, kind of through that intersection with Lindsay Creek, that block. But, no, it's just for that amount.
Just for that amount?
Yeah.
Segments.
It might, it's a good time to mention, it might make sense, you know, after this project, you know, as things go forward, to go in and do a bigger just rock mapping project, because it's pretty clear, like, that's the critical information you need to do sewer for a neighborhood, so rather than bring people in again and again, it might make sense to do the whole
Less
thing
expensive.
the next time around.
And rock mapping would entail several exploratory drills, is that?
Yeah, so you sort of, you know the road alignment that you want to put the sewer in eventually. And then you space them out every 50 to 100 feet and bore down to measure how deep the rock is in.
Sure.
Yeah.
So is that anywhere on this spreadsheet?
Nope.
No.
It's
No,
just for discussion, for us to talk about whether we want to entertain.
Because I see a line exploratory excavation, I didn't know if that was, and it was about, it has 10,005 on each.
Any idea how long you'll take them?
To do the rock boring. So that's already been done. We just did it because we needed to get the design done to kind of keep to the timeline for getting it all done.
So if it's, can I ask you a question? If it's not paid by the URA, does that fall to the city to pay for that, or how does that get paid?
Yeah,
Since
we
it
already
wasn't-
paid for it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I guess, yeah, it would just be sort of one, I guess, another thing that, I guess, would it sort of run up that imbalance of 50-50, I guess?
Yeah, so as you know, I took over the URA in January. My understanding was that in December, you know, you were kind of finished with EOS 2, right? Now we're getting into East Orchard Sewer Phase 3. And the discussion was, okay, the design contract was for like $171,000, but the URA took out 3 line items and said, we'll participate in these. And we'll participate in them at 100% because the books have been balanced and the URA owes the city $552,000. So to chunk down on that, the URA agreed to do 100%. And so this particular, the reason why I recommended to put it on the agenda as a request, are you willing to pay this instead of just shoving an invoice at you, is because it wasn't originally approved in the December meeting. And so it's appropriate to come to the URA and say, hey, this is a piece of the project, and it is. Are you willing to participate here?
So I guess we're deciding today whether we want to participate and whether an invoice will be brought back for approval next month.
Yes.
So,
And will that invoice count against the imbalance?
Correct.
Yeah.
so it would lower the 552,000
Yes.
of what we already owe. So just come off of that and be part of the same project. If I understand.
Well, it sounds appropriate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think we have an alternative, really.
Right.
It's already done.
So I guess I'm just looking for a motion to approve it, to bring it back next time for approval.
I'll motion that.
All right, so we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, motion passes. So next month, we'll be adding that invoice back on for 18,000 for approval. All right, next item of business is review of Mountain Water Works design documents and possible direction on future projects. I'll turn it over to Shannon and Joe.
Yeah, so this is now where we're at with the map and.
Okay, sorry, I got it a little.
That's all right, that's okay. And Joe, I don't have this one in my files, but we can get it sent to you, after the meeting. Essentially, the design is done. So Mountain Water Works has finished the design for the segments that we asked them to. And if you're looking at the map, that is segments 1, 17, 18, 19. And is it 30% or 20% of 7?
Oh, I mean, it's preliminary design.
Preliminary design,
I'm not sure
7.
exactly what percentage I would go with that.
It's preliminary. Usually it's about 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Joe Kaufman is here today to just kind of talk about what they found, and what you have here is the spreadsheet is the cost estimates if you or the city were going to move forward with any kind of construction. So I'll let Joe go ahead and talk about the process and what the findings were, and then I can talk after he's done about kind of options moving forward.
No, that sounds good. We all have the same sort of multicolored cost estimate there. And interrupt me if you have any questions, because run through there. Like you said, you kind of laid out on the map. If anyone is interested, I do have some copies of the plans themselves that it would show that rock profile in there. If people were curious to look at it, just let me know. It is, you know, the costs are significantly higher than what our planning level estimates were kind of back in December before we got rolling. You look at the line items in there, the one to really highlight is that third line item in rock excavation. You start looking at segments 17, 18, and 19, particularly 18. You have the rock excavation being, you know, over a third of the total cost for that sewer line through there. So the rock was shallower than I wished it was through there. The one upside on the design, it doesn't show up in the cost estimate, but just that it does look like we'd be able to service kind of along 20th all the way to Ripon. And once you get to Ripon at that intersection, you can turn the corner because it all kind of tips to the west from there. So that's a good thing, because it wasn't it was close enough. We had to go through the design part to kind of see how that would grade out in the end. Yeah, so that's the main thing. Overall, if you kind of weren't involved in that conversation back in December, 17, 18, and 19 are all kind of contiguous. They're the ones that really come up a lot. In that bigger sort of study that this map came out of, really talked about, well, which segments do you have to build before you can, you know, service another uphill segment? And they really are the ones that come up a lot. Like the overall philosophy that we're kind of trying to drive at is, we have a trunk line through the middle of the middle of the area in East Orchards. And
That's
it's
the yellow.
servicing. That's the, yeah, thank you, the yellow line. And there's a couple of pretty significant subdivisions that are going in that wouldn't be able to go without having the sewer service there.
So that line runs north and south.
Yes, the
17,
17, 18, and 19.
Run north. and
Yep,
south.
it runs north and south, kind of on the downhill side of that biggest area that could be served with gravity that isn't yet served by sewer. So, it's, I think that the milestone we'd love to get to eventually, or kind of next one would be where you're within a block of any particular neighborhood in East Orchards, so that if there is a bigger development, that no one has to really go more than a block to find public sewer service. So I guess that would be the idea. That's also why we had the preliminary design for 7 as a part of this effort, which is downhill on the north side where Lindsay Creek Road comes up and hits Grill. So the design back in the original trunk line along Grill, which is why there was a lot of rock excavation in Grill, we put the sewer line deep enough that we could stay underground through that intersection with Lindsay Creek Road and bring it up on the east side of that bit of a depression and service that area.
To my house.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Joe, I did find the map here.
Okay.
So for your information, Joe, number 1 up in the left-hand corner was designed along with 17, 18, and 19, these 3 segments here. And then 30% or preliminary design on segment 7, which is right here.
And, yep.
Okay, gotcha. So the red is what we're designing and the yellow is the current sewer line, is that what I heard?
Yes.
Yeah, the red is what we could design. We haven't designed all of them, but you could design them.
Orange shred.
Yeah, and then, yes, the yellow is what has been constructed to date.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for that. I was following along on the map that was in the packet, but that helps
Okay.
out a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where we land. Yep.
Question. So is there gravity all the way to Ripon? Like 17th, 18th, 19th are the ones we're looking at, but there's a 20th. Is that still in the gravity line? Or does that have to?
Yes, that's what we were talking about earlier, right? So, yeah,
Yes, yeah.
So we didn't include 20th, but it's kind of part of the line that would still flow downhill.
yeah. It's interesting how much the orchards, the whole general area sort of tips to the north. And so intuitively it feels like, oh, the grade break between Tammany and Lindsay Creek should be further north than it really is, just because the whole orchards is so sort of flat and tipped to the north. At least that's been my experience when I look at the actual contours.
Slopes towards the river.
Yeah.
So the rock excavation that you have highlighted in yellow, has that you were indicating it has gone up tremendously or quite a bit on 18 and 19?
Well, I think in the planning level sort of cost
Yeah.
estimate from before, we had I guess kind of a minimal kind of average sort
Yeah.
of number. And yeah, it was nowhere near, over a third of what it would cost to put in for a block. So
Yeah,
that's a
and I think
big
that's why they do the borings, is
Yeah.
because you kind of guess based on what you know.
Yeah.
You do the borings to say, well, what is it really? And then once those borings come back, they say, oh, no, you're gonna be doing a lot more excavation than you thought, just because of
They would say,
materials.
oh crap.
Yeah, yeah.
Is ground boring really the only way to do that? Is there
Sonar?
underground penetrating radar that?
It might, ground penetrating radar might work well in some places. I think the struggle is that it's really just measuring density differences. So if the density of your diggable material is the same as the density of the hard rock underneath it, that's pretty hard to capture with GPR. If your material is enough different that you can see the interface, then that would probably work.
Dirt versus rock.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just a lot to take on faith from the person doing the GPR.
Sure.
So I haven't been
Just
sold on it. No,
a casual question.
I'd like to do that. There's been talk about, like, I think that, I don't know if you can do it that shallow, but like seismic type surveying where they do that for geologic mapping and oil stuff might work, but they also are not gonna be allowed to like set off a lot of charges just to shake the ground under a lot of houses.
But sensitive residents.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them for being upset about that.
You call this from 20th to 21st a block, or is it like between Ripon and Birch, that distance a block?
Well, like an Orchards block,
Is a long way.
yeah, a lot longer east to west than north to south is, well, when you look at the old one, you know, those tree streets really are like alleys. That's why they're so narrow. I mean, they're public right of ways and they're built out of streets and houses face them, but if you kind of hold it at an arm's length, you can see, well, this looks just like a normal hill neighborhood with alleys down the middle and square blocks. And I think that was sort of the theory when they platted all those 5-acre orchards plots, but I mean, so we kind of end up with, yeah, the blocks or half blocks, however someone wants to think about that. But yeah, we treated them all as individual segments there. So, you know, your north-south segments are half the length of your east-west segments.
Gotcha.
Kind of in that sense.
So the 20% contingency, is that just trying to accommodate for things that may come up? Like on the bottom of your spreadsheet, the 20% contingency? Is that just to anticipate like things that may change?
Yes.
Is that what that's for?
I think
Inflation, things of that nature?
anything that we don't know now, I guess.
Sure.
I would look at that kind of as being, you know, if it's gonna be about 10% to kind of staff, construction, management, engineering, or to construction, and then about a 10% contingency, I feel would be a kind of an appropriate amount for this sort of sewer project with what we've done in the past there. I mean,
So then you're gonna go over the options, Shannon, about
Yeah,
what?
if you guys don't have any other questions for Joe, I can kind of go through projections of EOS 3, or actually the revenue allocation area, and then
okay.
we can talk options.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
If there's something more you want me to jump in on?
Sure,
just-
I will.
Thank you, Joe.
Where is Lindsay Creek Winery in relationship?
It would be off the edge of the map here a little
Over here,
ways.
further
Yeah.
out.
On Powers.
Yeah,
Like there.
yeah, it would be, yeah, kind of off in that segment 17 estimate about there, I think. Mike.
Where?
Oh,
17?
well, we had just pulled it out, so.
Oh.
It'd be about.
Oh, I see, yeah, that's
I
there.
think it'd be about there.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, yeah. You're very welcome.
Okay, so this is very high level, but I wanted to just give the board a sense of what this revenue allocation area looks like moving forward. And so, as you can see here, and I can make this bigger if we want. So we're starting with 2023, and the balance on your financial summary is 1.7 million. And so we've already captured the increment for this year, so I did not include that. We also have already paid some admin expenses out of here. So we will be making a bond payment of $350,000 because of the additional $200,000 that you've authorized. The Mountain Waterworks design is $99,000, and the debt reserve is $628,000. Now I can change this to be plus $18,000 now, right? Because you just authorized another $18,000. But I'm not going to because I can't, because it's not on this computer. But I will change this. So this is going to be a document that will change over time, obviously, because these increments, that's just what we collected and what we think we're gonna collect for 23, 24, right? But this is gonna change over time, these might change a little bit over time, and then we have the bond payments, and you can see I stopped here at 2031, and the reason is because the bond is 1.5 million right now, and if I continued these payments, then it would say we were paying 2.8 million, which is not correct. So I just stopped them around here. But again, as you make extra, if you choose to make additional payments over time, that obviously changes how much longer you would have to make bond payments. And then the debt reserve of 628,518 is just held back in 2023 because these totals then equal what was left in 23, add the increment in 24, subtract out expenses. And so you don't want to subtract out 628 across the board because it doesn't cost you 628,000 every single time. You just want to reserve it back. And the reason I have that here is not an expense, it's just a holdback, but it does show you until this is released, and it will be someday, then this is what you have available to spend. So that is why I included the 628. Also down here, we have the 552.78. This is obviously gonna change as soon as we pay the 53,000 that you authorized today, as well as the 18,000 for next month, and the bond at 1.493. So I just kind of put them as liabilities, if you will, hanging out there. The city is on your financial summary. It says that we'll reserve it until we release the bond reserves. And remember, there's two reserves here. There's the $228,000 one, and then there's the $400,000 one. Okay, so if you were to look at this spreadsheet, it's showing you the construction costs of segment 1, segment 17, 18, and 19. Now you cannot do 18 and 19 without doing 17, but you can do 17 without doing 18 and 19. You can also do number 1. You could also say, you know what, I think we are interested in continuing on with the design for number 7 because you only did preliminary for that. And do you know what that cost might be, Joe?
Yeah, so, worked with Brian on that. So it'd be roughly, if we were going to bundle it in with this larger project, so you have all the bid or the spec packet and things that you already could refer to, it'd probably be in the neighborhood of $16,000. If it was on its own and we had to kind of put its own piece together, you'd probably be talking about $30,000.
Okay.
Almost double.
Yeah, it's economies of scale when it comes to this.
So is that gonna be gravity feed, or is there gonna have to be a lift in that area?
For number 7?
Number 7.
Yeah, so number 7, it's all gravity flow. Everything that we're looking at right now is gravity flow. It's a good question because to get to the end of whatever we're talking today, that was something I was going to bring up. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that price, is that just for design, did you say?
yes.
Yeah, that's to finish out the design of number 7. I don't know the history of why it was presented as just preliminary for number 7 originally. Was that because of the unknown soils, or?
There's a couple things going on in number 7 that we knew were complicated. So there's an old, I think, concrete single lane bridge that's buried in the middle of the low point there, that whenever they made it a 2-lane road, or somewhere in that process, it has a piece of culvert stuck on one side, a piece of culvert stuck on the other. I think we'll just end up having to remove that old bridge and put an actual new sort of culvert underneath there when we dig through it.
Is that right close to where Lindsay Creek comes up?
Yes, it's just to the east of that. Yeah, it's at the low point, just east of that intersection in Grell. There's LOID has a pretty fragile, their description, asbestos cement domestic water line without a lot of valves to isolate it down through that block. There was just a lot of challenges that we knew were there, but not well enough defined to kind of know how big of a deal it would be for a sewer project. And so we also kind of had felt that there's some undeveloped area that's adjacent to it, that there was a possibility that, you know, in the future, a subdivision or a development might need to construct that, and it'd be a lot easier to leverage that if we had kind of proved through, like, here's a sewer alignment that we feel confident would be constructible, and to go from there. But I don't know how long that, or if that really would materialize or not. Mostly because we knew enough to know that that one was critical. Well, you also have the surface grade compared to the other places. You know, you're here and you know that the ground is going the opposite direction that the sewer has to go. Like, if the intersection had to actually be changed, like filled up in the lowest spot in order to make it all work, and for LOID to have something that we could kind of reserve, hey, this is where we're planning to build a sewer line. So if they're planning to redo their water line,
Right.
you have a little bit of a
So is it
back and forth.
safe to say that originally there was so many unknowns, it was like, is this even a viable project? So let's do the 30%. Now we've done the 30%, and would you say from the preliminary design that you think it is a viable project? Sure, there might be extra cost to it because of those culverts and asbestos cement and whatnot, but it's not a non-viable project like you thought it could be.
I think that's a fair summary. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
Yep, I think one of the questions that we wanted to answer through that preliminary design was really, Joe mentioned earlier that we set that manhole at Grell and 20th as kind of as deep as possible, really to proof out that you could actually serve that area by gravity over there. And what we did find is that it does look like it's a feasible option.
Okay. And so the bundled price would be to take the design of 7 and hook it with like one of these other 4 groups, number 1 and 17? Is that what you're
You could
thinking?
do it without construction.
But it would be double.
Right, because what you're saying is, or are you saying, no, you get it for 16 if you construct, or you get it for 16 now because we're still in this design phase? Instead of doing it 3 years from now, you start over.
Yeah, so maybe the easier way to think about it is that you have a design, and you know, this is one of these for the ones that you have. It's all the plans on paper, the profiles and things. But along with that, and just as important, maybe more important, is kind of the contract, the specifications, all the paperwork and requirements for your bonds and insurance. So that whole thing that goes out to be bid. So we have that kind of already for this project that we
Yes.
put together. So if you were to design 7 and bundle it with it, you already have all of that put together. It's kind of one effort to get all the paperwork for a project ready to go.
Are you saying it's a change order to the existing design contract, or is it included with the construction contract?
I think it's that we've already paid to produce that thick piece of paper,
Yeah.
the book. And so adding more blocks to it doesn't really, you don't have to redo all of the specs. You
For
just
the
refer to
design
it.
contract.
And so that's the less expensive way to put it together so it'd be ready to bid.
Okay.
You'd kind of have that same sort of overhead expense if we were to say only build half of what's there and say, oh, we want to go back and build the other half. Well,
You're not getting it at this price.
we can't just, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some
You have to start the
project
process over.
overhead basically to
Yeah.
put that together and make it ready to go out, ready
Right.
to bid.
Right.
And so that's kind of what that
Gotcha.
$14,000 difference really is about.
And so could the URA then, I just want to make sure that I understand this, could the URA say, well, we'd like to move forward with the design of 7. We're not quite ready to do any of the construction yet, but we do want to move forward with the design of 7.
Yeah.
Then you could do that for the $16,000 price.
I think so. I'd have to get an actual proposal out of Mountain Water.
The
Works,
second,
but-
well, the second question would be, would the city be willing, because that's a contract change for the city. Because you guys are the ones who actually approved the contract with Mountain, it's your contract.
Yeah.
And so it'd be a contract change, a change order to the contract to move forward with number 7.
Yeah,
So that might be something to think about. You do not have to make any decisions today, I should have said that right off the bat. This is information for you. The reason why we put action item is in case you wanted to do something, it didn't prohibit you from doing so. But we could line out all these options, you can think about them, and you can bring them back to the next meeting. And at that point, Joe would know more about exactly what that would entail.
Yeah, if no one has an interest to do that, I hate to have
Yeah.
people spend all the time to really
Yeah.
get down to this is what we will do it for, but
Yeah.
it's like a.
I will tell you, I did get an email from a property owner on that segment saying, hey, oh my gosh, I saw somebody doing materials testing. Does that mean you're bringing sewer to my block? And so I looked and I'm like, nope, because it's in number 7. And so there is a property owner that is interested in the conversion on that particular segment. And so there is interest, I guess, on that one.
But did we talk one time, a segment like 7 is gonna be quite a bit more expensive per potential hookup than some of these other segments?
I think if I
Yeah.
may, part of the difference with 7 is that if you just count existing homes, there's a lot fewer kind of per foot on that house, because there's some vacant frontage on both sides of sections of 7.
Okay.
But so you end up with, like you said, potential hookups. Like potential carries a lot of weight in that sentence, because is that potentially just existing homes that convert, or is that potentially new homes being built there? So some blocks you might have a lot of existing homes, but there's not a lot of potential for new infill. Anyway, sorry, it's not as simple.
Yeah, I mean, and
Answer.
also it extends the line, right? So then you could move forward from 7. There may not be a lot there now with that, East Orchards is a place for potential infill, right? You have, let's say you have big orchards blocks, big orchards properties now. As we know, these start getting smaller and smaller over time. Sewer would allow you to do that, septic tank doesn't. So it does provide the opportunity for higher density if desired. But we don't know, we don't know the future, but it wouldn't be a barrier. Maybe that's a better way of putting it,
Well,
because you have the line.
It sounds like the smart way to go financially.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to continue on with the East Orchard Sewer project, and the city thinks that that's a fine segment to continue the design on because it leads to future possibilities, that's something to consider, for sure.
So this says phase 2 evaluation for 1, 17, 18, and 19. What does that entail? Like how long would that take? And like, this is my ignorance here because I don't know, I've never been a part of any of these before. So what would that look like? I mean,
I think they're calling it phase 2, and we call it
Okay.
phase 3.
all
Can I
right.
answer that?
Yeah, well, I'm just like, if we're in design of 7, so I'm just trying to figure out, like, I don't know the phases of
So
how a
the
design
phase
works.
2 evaluation was actually completed at the end of the phase 1 project, which is the yellow line.
Okay,
The phase 2 evaluation is the one that assigns, so that figure that you're looking at is what we call the phase 2 evaluation. It's essentially, after the trunk line, we did the evaluation of the remaining segments, how much they would cost, how many potential connections there would be. And so that map that you're looking at, so when we say phase 2, it's really just referencing the segment numbers that are shown on that map,
okay.
if that makes sense.
So I'm just trying to figure out how far into the project are we to it being completed? Like, if we're in design phase of 7, where are we at on these? Are they all at different phases, or do you?
I have, I guess, a final review copy, so I'll look at, because I got them, well, that's gone part of last week, so I got them on Monday to look at along, the cost estimate that I heard last week. They should be pretty well done. I might catch typos or a label that needs to be changed or something like that is what I'd expect. And then, that sort of level of going through it. So they're pretty well done.
Okay,
And we could be to the point of bidding it out very quickly.
okay,
For
that's what I was trying to
all
figure
these
out.
segments, yeah. It'd mostly be, yeah, kind of that final review, getting DEQ approval, because we have to submit that to them, the stamp plans, the state reviews them and says whether they meet their standards for public wastewater systems or not. Which they will, but we'll just take one more step, and pick dates to bid it, get those dates into the spec book and contract and all
Yeah.
of that, and then get it advertised and out.
So if I can put your attention back to this, as you can see, if you were interested in saying, hey, we want to do all 4 of these segments, plus we want to do the $16,000, you don't have it,
Yeah.
right, until 2026. And even then, at 2026, these prices are gonna change a little bit, right, because of inflation. And so that's part of what you need to consider is, does it make sense to wait? Are we interested in continuing on with, I mean, that's number 1. Are we interested in continuing on with this project and these things? This term of this goes to 2037. And so you do have time and ability to continue on with these projects. So that's number 1, right? And let's say you say, yes, we do want to continue on with these projects. Well, at what capacity do you want to do that? Do you want to finish the design of number 7, right? That's certainly something you can afford to do and be done with it. And maybe you do segment number 1, because that one's kind of an outlier out there. And then you say, but we are interested in doing 17, 18, and 19, but we don't have the cash right now. Bonding isn't an option right now, so why don't we wait a year or 2 and do 17, 18, and 19? That's an option as well. So there's lots of different things that the URA can do moving forward. And so that's why I might recommend that you think about it and put it on the next agenda. And then if there's anything else that Joe, Ryan, Luke, or myself can give you to help you with this decision, or if other things come up that the city might think of, then we can discuss those things at the next meeting. That might be the way to go.
I have one more question. Segment 1 and segment 17 are similar in price. Is there one that would be more beneficial if we had to choose between one of those? If we could just afford one project, which would be the most beneficial to the community? Would it be 1 or would it be 17? Would it impact more of an area?
So if you look at your map, I think 17 is by a pretty wide margin, the more beneficial for the whole area, because it's the prerequisite, for 18 and 19.
Yeah.
They flow down through there. 1 would be, a good project for the homes in the area that are fronting that road, but it's going up basically to the edge of where COSD services the neighborhood. So it doesn't, the Central Orchard Sewer District. So you get to the east side of kind of where the black hash marks are, and that's in COSD. To the west of our basin, the study area there. So that has sewer. So we're not likely to extend anything further that way. Whereas, like if you were owning a home that's sort of there on, if you see number 16 on the map, all the way by Ripon and 22nd. So building 17 at least moves it 1 block closer to having service at your house. So you kind of have that benefit when you're kind of going on that side that you don't have on 1.
So is housing more dense on 1 than 17?
I'd have to look at the map to be sure, but I'm pretty confident it is, because one side of 17 is mostly one of the last remaining kind of big open lots in the orchards. Well, no, Profits is 1 block further to the east.
Right there. Right there, Lindsay Creek.
10, yeah, about where 10 is.
Yep. And if you haven't driven by there lately, it's a useful thing to go and look at, because that subdivision on that block would not be possible without having the sewer built through there. And one of the reasons that the increment's grown so quickly.
Don't want to
Yeah.
get too off, but is there a lot of new development, 26 and 27 segments would be serving, or is that a pump area?
So, yeah, the aerial is a little bit older on this. So on the east side of 26 and 27 is been, like the part that fronts up against that has been subdivided and built. So there's half acre.
So they're
Lots.
feeding down to the yellow line instead of to the west?
The ones that were on that first phase are all on septic. Then there is a subdivision that's kind of in the process of planning that's off of, like,
Segment 26.
yeah, it's 26, so on the southwest corner of that intersection. Yeah. So they're in the process of designing that. They're all, those lots I believe are all gonna be on sewer.
And they'll feed north to the yellow or something?
Yeah.
All right, so should we don't need a motion to just table this until next time, so maybe we'll just discuss.
Ken, I take from what you said that we've got flexibility for years ahead. In what we approve and move forward with.
Yeah, I think, I mean, certainly if you wanted to move forward with something today, you can. We put it on the agenda as an action item, but if you want to think about it some more, ask more questions at the next meeting, you can certainly, we can just put this on the next meeting agenda and talk about it some more there if you're not prepared to move forward with anything. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what the finances look like compared to what the costs are, because that's always something that, you know, as you know, we do have an outstanding bond on here. And some folks are, you know what, I'm more interested in getting rid of this debt, then we will move on with construction, or no, I like to do both at the same time kind of thing. It's really, none of them are right or wrong answers. They're just different ways of doing it, so. It's really up to the board how you want to proceed.
And the interest rate we're paying on the bond is?
2.84
2.84.
for the first 10 years.
Construction costs are going up faster than that.
I know, that's
and
what I
so
was.
It's pretty good money then. If
Good point.
So we have 633,000 available, so my thinking was doing segment 17 and bundling it with design 7. That was kind of my thought process. That way you're still moving forward, but you're not, and you're doing the project that's most beneficial to increase homes in that area.
Yeah.
However, if you're doing 17, is there more bang for the buck continuing on up 18 than to go over to 7?
I mean, there's probably more economies of scale if you did 17, 18, and 19 together,
Yeah.
right? Instead of doing 17 now and then 18 and 19 a few years from now. But it can be done. If you do 17 now and then delay 18 and 19, again, those costs will go up, and they might rise a little bit because is the assumption that on the prices for 18 and 19 that you would have done 17, like you're doing it as a package, so the mobilization and all of that is relying on that, or not necessarily?
Segment 1 has a $50,000 mobilization, and then the others are just $7,500.
Yeah.
And that's probably because it's assumed that you would do them together.
And correct me if I speak wrong, but because we have this labeled as the base bid being segment 1, so that's sort of like the smallest the project could be. You would bid out the whole thing and you add alternates for 17, 18, and 19. And like you said, you would never be able to really like actually award 19 and not award 17 and 18. You're gonna have to
Yes.
run up those. I think, it would make more, after going through all of this, I think it probably makes more sense to have the base bid be 17 than to be 1. But I don't think that's not very hard to change around, kind of like you were saying. seems to provide a much broader benefit to people than one does.
So do you guys wanna table it until next time and think about it some more, or do you wanna make decisions?
I'd like to go out and take a look at it.
I would too, actually.
All right, and plus Joe's online and he's new, so he might wanna take a look, and if Jim Clayburg's new, he might wanna have some opportunity to look at that.
Yeah,
So-
let's just table it.
Yeah.
I move we table it.
All right, so let's table that for next time. That way everybody will have an opportunity to review it, kind of get up to speed, and we can make decisions next time. And then I don't know, should we consider making a new map that shows, I don't know, is that possible, or is that too much work?
No, if you want an updated map, I think we can.
I just didn't know if it helped to see.
We can do that, because I think it would be worthwhile. It might show slightly different information, but we can try to keep all the numbered segments
I don't want to
consistent.
That would be great.
And can you put the RAA boundary on
Okay.
it? Because it's not actually on here, and part of this is not within the revenue allocation.
Good.
Oh,
Good
Oh,
point.
that's
I
good,
didn't know
good to
that.
know. Oh, let's do it.
Because we're kind of bound by
Ah,
It's showing you gravity fees. but-
spending within that,
Yeah.
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 You wouldn't want to go beyond this. But you
Alright.
might be able to
Beyond
do
the
that. Yeah, you might be able to do
20
that. I just want to make sure that we're,
Clear on that.
yeah.
I like that idea.
Is that just a Google Earth shot and then you overlay that?
That's a GIS map that then was drafted on top of, back when they did that kind of, the phase 2 evaluation, like you were saying. But we could have a more recent aerial that would kind of show more homes where they are, and
They're changing weekly.
there has been a lot of change there since 2018. And I was, if I could just add one thing, because it was kind of teased with this question. When I do come back, there's a couple others kind of related subjects that'd be good to at least mention to you so it's percolating. One is that when we do go ahead and do another project, kind of how we facilitate people who want to have it stubbed to their property or convert from septic to sewer during the project. We've done it a couple different ways in the 2 projects we've done already, and so it'd probably just be a discussion I would want to lead y'all through and decide which way we were gonna go from there. Because it is a lot easier to put those to the property lines while the sewer line's going in than them going in after the fact doing that. And then there's been some talk a little bit with this school district just about them wanting to convert the Tammany School from their large sort of septic system to public sewer, which might have some crossover with the work here. If you refer to the map, there's some lift station locations that are mapped out, potentially for serving that pressure service side that drains towards Tammany. And so there might be an opportunity to try to engage with COSD and with the school district about, if there was one spot that worked for serving all of those places, kind of in the future.
Is Tammany School in our revenue allocation area?
It's not,
No.
but it's kind of a big enough question, and pump stations are kind of expensive to build, but, to maintain, if we could avoid having more than are absolutely required is definitely a value.
Hey, guys. Hey, I hate to interrupt, I gotta go. This was great. The information was fantastic. And I think it'll be great to table this meeting, or this item, just so that I can get up to speed. But I really appreciate Katie getting that binder together. I've been looking through it, and it's got a lot of great information. So anyway, I'm gonna sign off. I gotta go fly, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
it's
Thanks, Joe.
Working with all of you guys, and man, a lot of good information. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. All right, so I guess we're gonna table this, discuss it next
So-
time, more
Yeah.
more
And
opportunities.
it sounds
for
like
you.
maybe something from me and Joe that kind of outlines discussion, maybe some of this past. I mean, especially with those stub outs, Joe, I think it would be good to say, here's what we did in the past. What could this look like? Because I'm not familiar with it either, so.
Well, I'm hearing Joe suggest that we drive the area between now and the next meeting.
Yeah.
I've done that a couple times, and the problem is that once I've done it, I have it in mind, and by the next meeting, I've forgotten.
Yeah.
I drive through those areas, but I don't have the map with me. when I
Yeah.
do
Oh,
that.
well, now you
Update the map.
All right, so we'll move on with the agenda and table that for next time. We'll move on to the unfinished and new business and open it up for board comments. Anybody have a comment?
I think it's good that we fill those two positions.
Yeah,
Or certainly.
very pleased to have both Joe and, who's the new?
Jim Cleaver.
Jim.
So there was a little bit of a discussion at last month's meeting about how to publicize some of the past work that the URA has been able to accomplish. Has anything been done on that?
No.
Just a question,
No. It's Sheila and I were talking about this a little bit before the meeting and going about that's all. It's a difficult thing to do. Certainly you can talk about it in terms of increment, for sure. But like we were talking about with number 7, how do you capture the possibilities instead of you capture just what is?
yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was looking for. is-
Right, right. And coming into this, I'm just not as familiar with how to do that, but, no, it has not, but it's not something that we're just not gonna do, it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you go about doing it.
One thought that came to me is there's must be some information through the city if there's been like applications for development. For instance, along Grell, there's a lot of open lots, but yeah, a lot of them have fresh fences and new animals in them. And yeah, I'm not guessing there's gonna be houses there, but there's other
But like
places.
the profit subdivision that he was talking about, that, could not have been done without the sewer there.
Yeah.
So that one you could say.
But
this
there's
one
probably an
is correct.
application and it works a year or two before those things ever happen.
Yeah.
They'd have an idea.
Yeah, where a developer has interest.
That's true.
And the more information you get out, the more people call and say, well, how come you put them ahead of me?
Okay.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, we have that with our
Reverse
roads.
Yeah.
Why
Bang
do
for
we
the
mag
buck.
that? Why do we mag that?
It's always
Why don't
that.
we not? So, but I think any information we can get out to make us look good is important. A lot of people don't know what we do.
Well, I just wanted to thank Joe and his team for showing up, and Sharon, I know you guys put a lot of work into that, so I really appreciate.
Yeah, thank you,
That's a
Joe.
lot of work, so anyway, appreciate you taking the time to come speak to us.
Always happy to do that. Thank you.
And then any staff comments?
Yes, a couple things. So, you see this big brick of a training manual. So Katie put together for Joe Gish, for Tim, and for Jim Cleaver, this manual. And so as you can see here, it has the calendar, roster, bylaws, budget, that changes over time. The annual report also changes over time. The URA 101 that Megan did for the group. And then resolutions of each plan. And so the question is twofold. One, does everybody else want a printed version of this, or we can also put it on the website or your drive that you can reference them? And 2, the plan was to do a training with Tim, Joe, and Jim. But if you want us to do the training at a meeting, if you're all interested in that, we could do the training at the meeting if you think it would benefit you. Or I can do the training, and if anybody wants to join, they can. So there's some options.
Can we break it up so that maybe at each meeting we have
Yeah, so each
Go
meeting
through
you
a
could
schedule.
do, and that's kind of what we've been doing, right? So we
Yeah.
started with
Right.
East Main, but we could go through them, from soup to nuts. Like, here's how it started, here's where we are.
I would honestly say that if I had one of those notebooks, it might be a waste of a good tree.
They're pretty big.
But I would like to be able to access it on the
Yeah.
notepad when a specific topic came up.
Sure.
Find the history behind
Yeah, yeah, some people are fine with paper and some people are not.
I would like a paper copy,
Okay.
if possible, since I'm sure, I like to take notes
Always
inside of
like
it
paper, I like
and
to
tab.
keep all
I like
that.
to tab, I'm old school. If possible.
And then as far as the training, do you want me to, so I think Joe's really interested in having like a training, which I can do, and then we can take the separate revenue allocation areas and break them up to each meeting, which is what we were kind of doing anyway. So we
Right.
would skip East Main because we just did it. We're really talking about orchards right now, but we could go a little bit more in depth about, you know, where we started, where we were, where we are today, where we can go.
it. Definitely like to learn more about Brighton.
Yeah. And then Brighton and downtown are your next ones. So, like I said, Dustin and Barney are coming next week to talk about where the city's at with Brighton. Barney's coming to hear that for himself as well, and then he may speak to some projects that they move forward with, because it's kind of like if the city doesn't move on Brighton in the next 10 years, then LOID's like, well, maybe we will move forward without them. You know, you don't want to rip up the street if you don't have to, knowing that a project's gonna be done, but if it's not gonna be for a decade.
Yeah.
Well, we're actually accumulating some significant or substantial funds.
Money talks.
Yeah, and so we've got either an opportunity or an obligation or something to move on that one.
Yeah.
The downtown one is gonna take a while before we can really accomplish anything.
Yeah. Okay,
Well, I'd like to be a part of any training, so we can either break it up in a meeting or.
okay. Here's what I'll do. I will schedule a training that works for Tim, Joe, and Jim, if he wants to be a part of it, and Sheila, and then we'll tell you when that's gonna be, and if you're able to come, you can. If you're not able to come, that's fine. Does that sound like a plan?
I'd hope to attend.
Okay. And that will be outside of a meeting. And then during the meetings, we will still continue to talk about each one of these revenue allocation areas. 2 of my maps are missing. Don't know where they are. They were over here. They're gone now. So I might have to reprint them and put them on the bottom there. But yeah, anything we can do to help make it easier for you guys to make decisions is our goal.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Good, I appreciate that.
Okay,
All right,
that's all I had.
all right, I guess that's the last thing on the agenda, so anybody have a motion to adjourn?
Also moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.